Welcome back, everybody. Taking a break from the apologetic theme, and we're going to be breaking down a song today, a song by one of my favorite bands called Tool. The song is probably one of my favorite songs they've ever written, called Lateralus. Now, the thing about Tool is oftentimes people listen to the presence of their music, and they don't dive too deep into the lyrics, because they usually weren't written down inside of the albums themselves, so it took a while for us to figure out what he was saying. He himself, Maynard Keenan, also said, I leave it up for interpretation, which is good, because you should. The lyrics should speak for themselves with the music presented, as far as I can tell. And to be honest, it just took me a while to age to actually appreciate the entirety of the music. Like, even now, I'm enjoying older movies now, whereas a younger version of myself, I would say, oh, those graphics are terrible. And I would lose interest because it wouldn't really appeal to me. But now story is getting a lot more interesting. So the thing about Maynard and the thing about Tool itself, I read this book called, I think it's called A Perfect Combination of Contrarian Things. And it's a book about Maynard's his journey, basically. I was hoping it would tell me a little bit more about the philosophy, about what he believes. But not really, but it gives hints. Inside that book itself, he said he used to read, well, two of the authors I really like, Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung. If you're not familiar with them, Joseph Campbell posited the concept of the hero's journey. This is an element that exists in every single story that motivates us. You cannot get an ought from an is. So if science can tell you one thing, it won't tell you how to act in the future. It'll just tell you, maybe give you a prediction of things. And the reason why that's important is because every action we do comes from a story, comes from a template. You might have seen your dad do it, or someone in, well, not politics, but one of your heroes do it, and you'd be like, I want to be like that, because there's a story around the character. And he also read Carl Jung, and Carl Jung, if you've not heard of him before, he's worth a read for sure. He was one of the guys that separated from Sigmund. Actually, he was the counter guy that separated from Sigmund Freud. Their biggest issue splitting was Freud viewed all myth stories as like appealing to your sky daddy, like it all goes down to the secular sexual theme, whereas Carl Jung said, no, we have to take these mythic stories seriously. And so he took them seriously, and he pursued them, and he has a wealth of knowledge that just didn't make it into mainstream academia. So Maynard read those two guys and was fascinated by them, and he also has a deep understanding of biblical literature, as far as I can tell. He might have had a rough time with it in the past, but then he met people in the future that explained the stories a little better. That being said, if you examine the lyrics in Tool, oftentimes, besides the cynicism and the obvious sarcastic notes in some of their songs, you'll find some really hopeful things. The song Lateralus starts like that. Now, originally I wanted to start with the song Reflections, but you kind of need this one to precede it. They're both kind of a yin-yang perspective. Reflections, to me, is a lot more deeper. It deals with the agency of the negative instead of just the agency. Because the agency itself is just like, why did everything begin? Why is there something rather than nothing? Well, that's agency. It's like self-referencing. So we're going to go through the song Lateralus line by line. I'm going to leave a link to the song below so you can actually listen to the song itself. It's worth a listen. But this is just the philosophical breakdown of the lyrics and how they appeal to the hero's story. So I'm going to try to give you my interpretation after listening to this stuff for years and actually apply a good bit of this song to my life. It's a great mantra to have. So the song goes something like this. Actually goes exactly like this. Black then white are all I see. In my infancy, red and yellow then came to be. Reaching out to me, lets me see. So that's like the concept of the duality. First there was one. Well, there's nothingness. That's like the dragon of chaos. It's a huge thing to go into. Black and white, that's a duality. It's one or the other. And then red and yellow come to be. Now I believe those are the first two colors that in infancy, something like that. So it's like the idea of black then white then a spectrum. So there goes from just the duality to multiple paths. And the next line is, as below, so above and beyond I imagine. Drawn beyond the lines of reason, push the envelope and watch it bend. As above, so below and beyond I imagine. As below, so above, that's a common like New Age saying. Things are the same way down here as they are up there. It's a direct reflection of it. That's like both sides of the line of the sine wave or the envelope or the known versus the unknown. As you know the known, because you are the knower, you're in the middle of the line. As you know the known, the unknown will reflect that, hopefully. And the reason why I say that's New Age is because the concept that all will become one. As you have known something, you will also know something at the same time. It's kind of weird. And it also gets rid of the concept of individuality, because we are all one. What's the point of difference? What's the point of reconciliation? What's the point of character and personality and all this other stuff? Push the envelope and watch it bend. That's like the concept of exploration. You want to, go out. You already know something. So once you have your set paradigm known, you equip yourself with that and go to the unknown. We do this every single day. You go to work every day. You already know what to expect in the schedule. It's the things in between your known routine that give life its kind of flavor or grind you down, one or the other. So the next line is, which is pretty relevant, overthinking, overanalyzing separates the body from the mind, withering my intuition, missing opportunities, and I must feed my will to feel my moment, drawing way outside the lines. So in a Freudian sense, he described the person as the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is like your interaction with reality. It's your instincts, your hungers, your lusts. Come on, cat bud. What would drive you compulsive? That's your id. And the ego is what rides on that beast. It's the one that directs it where to go, specifically as it travels. And then the superego is the one that is like the abstract guidance above it that tells the ego where it should go. But sometimes the ego listens to the beast, like this one, because the beast gets hungry or thirsty, needs to drink. Sometimes it just needs to run. Who knows? That's the idea. So in this line, he's saying it separates the body from the mind. Overthinking, overanalyzing focuses your entire being on the ego instead of where you should go or what you should do. It's like it's the middle line. It's the knower between the known and the unknown. Because the distance between the id and the superegos, it's like infinite. That's why consciousness is such a cool thing to think about. It's where the transcendent and reality touch. And he says, withering my intuition, missing opportunities. When you spend your time mulling about, when you spend your time in contemplation, you aren't doing anything. This is an action. And the reality is the id. That's the part that interacts with reality. And I must feed my will to fill my moment, drawing way outside the lines. And that could be something like harnessing your internal agency. Something like you want to motivate yourself to go into the future, to go into the beyond with what you're equipped and what you know. Then it goes back, black and white are all I say in my infancy, because this whole thing is it's a fractal, the whole song. It's meant to spiral out. The whole song is written as such, so are the verses and the lyrics. Black then white are all I see in my infancy. Red and yellow then came to be. Reaching out to me lets me see. There is so much more and beckons me to look through to these infinite possibilities. That's like the wonder when you stand at the edge of the sea and stare out to the horizon. There's like infinite terror where you look up into space, infinite chaos, impossible to cross. But that's the thing, that it's like infinite, and there's also bounty in there. There's like, who knows what's in space, really. It seems impossible to conquer, but also the ocean. The ocean can give you food. It can be extremely bountiful. But it's also terrible. It could storm up and destroy you, and you are powerless against it. As below, so above and beyond I imagine, drawn outside the lines of reason, push the envelope, watch it bend. Overthinking, overanalyzing separate the body from the mind, withering my intuition, leaving opportunity behind. And then a new verse, feed my will to feel this moment, urging me to cross the line, reaching out to embrace the random, reaching out to embrace whatever may come. And this is the start of the cycle of the hero's journey. It's on my banner. This thing resonates with me so much. You're on the known, and there's a line, and everybody knows this line. The line that you cross into the unknown, where you don't know how to act. And this can be in like any scenario whatsoever. And there's different parts of your life where this happens. And sometimes you're even pulled into it through tragedy, through surprise even. Husband surprises you with flowers at work. Like, where did they come from? Or you're in a car crash. That's the unknown. But you know how to drive, so maybe you can alter that a little bit. So that's being armed with the known, facing the unknown. Because every time you drive is even a risk. But this song, I think, specifically calls you to just embrace the adventure of your everyday life. The adventure of the future, and put some effort into it, maybe. And as life comes at you, you want to maybe not accept it, but at least live it. You can live with life or against life, especially if we're dealing with the whole watery concept. And the whole water mantra, that's extremely ancient, deals with like Marduk and the chaotic waters that's in the Mesopotamian area, where we have the oldest stories that we have archived in archaeological evidence. Next line is, I embrace my desire to feel the rhythm, to feel connected, enough to step aside and weep like a widow, to feel inspired, to fathom the power, to witness the beauty, to bathe in the fountain, to swing on the spiral. He's saying literally what he was alluding to in the previous verse. I embrace this desire to live. Sometimes you live well. Sometimes it thunders hailstones on your head and you just got to deal with it. Sometimes you drown. Sometimes you die. That's part of life. But what's the alternative? The alternative is to lie down and, I guess, do nothing. But then this line, after he says to swing on the spiral, is really key. To swing on the spiral of our divinity and still be a human. Now, why would he say that? Because there is something divine about consciousness. Something that separates us from, my little dude here, is the whole concept that we have a nature. We know we have a nature, and we can violate it if we want to. And the fact that we can violate our nature means we have this knowledge of, vulnerability. We have knowledge of where we can go, that's dark, and we have knowledge that other people can also go that place. And maybe we can send other people there too. Or we can take them out of it. That's another part of it. So there's something divine about being able to violate your own nature if you wish, but you don't have to. You can embrace it. You can endure with the hero's journey, because part of the hero's journey is you do descend to the unknown, and sometimes you even get, eaten by the sea monster, maybe chewed up a little bit. But then if you can overcome that, you come back stronger, or perhaps with a gift on how to survive further sea monster attacks, how to prevent other people from drowning, how to prevent other people from doing car crashes, and it helps all of humanity. You come back with a gift for everybody, and that's your experience, and experience has a shelf life. So if we continue this kind of heroic cycle through the individual, the community benefits. That's how you get value through the individual for the community. As far as I can tell, any cultural practice, any religion that doesn't focus on the individual, rather makes either the state or it makes religion more important than the dignity of the person, everything suffers. And the next line is, with my feet upon the ground, I lose myself between the sounds, and open wide to suck it in. I feel it move across my skin. I'm reaching up and reaching out. I'm reaching for the random, or whatever will bewilder me. And following our will and wind, we may just go where no one's been. We'll ride the spiral to the end, and may just go where no one's been. So I really like the way he throws the hero story out there, and I can't imagine this being a template of anything else but that. So the hero story is a circle, but here it's described as like a fractal. It gets bigger and bigger as you go on, and that's something about divine. So eventually, if it goes bigger and bigger, depending upon your perspective, it'll become like a straight line, and it'll go infinite. Like, when do you hit that part of the hero's journey? But the picture he painted in this verse is one of a person standing with the id, as we talked about earlier, literally grounded and in tune with the transcendent. I lose myself between the sound. Open wide to suck it in, I feel it move across my skin. He's destroying the ego and trying to make the two merge, the id and the transcendent. I'm reaching up and reaching out, reaching for the random, or whatever will bewilder me, what you don't understand. That's the unknown. He's reaching for the unknown to see what kind of bounty there might be in there. Following our will and wind, we may just go where no one's been. Ride the spiral to the end. Just keep going. Spiral out. Keep going. And that is the sense of adventure. The whole theme around the band Tool, at least in this song, it does seem like it has a very dark element. But it's dark as far as I can tell when it comes to depth. The more I read Nietzsche, the more I read Peterson, the more I read Jung, it gets very scary. And sometimes I think I'm losing my mind because the concepts they have are just so great and profound and deep and wide. I lose people's attention when I'm trying to explain them. But they hit me super hard, and there's a deep depth to that, and you feel quite lonely if you go this far down into philosophy and thinking and reason. But you have to be willing to go down it. And the depth there is just immense, especially when you start to dive into the life of Christ. The whole concept of the transcendent we were just talking about, and then the flesh merging together and offering that as a template, and then dying for us. So we can also merge into that. Like, that is just such a mind-blowing concept. Like, no person could have thought that up. There's no way. We thought of a lot of great things in our time, but that is just beyond us. That is our divinity right there. That's our key to it, as far as I can tell. So this song is a very, I would say, even Christ-like message. The unknown, death, is by far that gate that everyone is scared to cross. And maybe not fearful as in like high anxiety fearful, but it's just the fear of the unknown. It's like jumping into the deep end of a pool for the first time. Even though you know there's someone there that can save you, and you can touch the bottom, and you got floaties on. Like, even though you know all that, you're still jumping in. It's still scary, even if you have faith. There's a little bit of a sting there. Just a little bit. Not in reality because you know better if you have a good, proper sense of faith. But in just the reality that you're flesh, and it must be cast off. So anyway, that's my interpretation of the song Lateralus. Hope you liked it. Click the like button, subscribe to see more in the future, and I'll see you next time. Take care.